Right, okay, so finally got to the day. Today I'm going to be fitting a Wolfbox G900 Dashcam with reverse camera as well. Now this is a 4K display. Been wanting to do this for a while. It was a wee Christmas treat to myself, but I've just had rubbish weather, too much surf for me to get going. So while I do this, I'm going to try and document it. Hopefully I can help someone else fit this. I'm fitting it to a VW Transporter T6 start line. Sadly, not a high line. But from my own research so far, what I know, this comes with a hardwire kit here, which means I've essentially got all the taps to plug it straight into the fuse box. The only thing I've had to get additionally is these fuse taps, which I've never actually seen before. But essentially these allow me to remove the fuse which I'm going to tap into, plug this in, put the fuse back in, and then use this. It's essentially a piggyback, so really useful bit of kit. I've got, like, I don't know, this is 11.5 foot extension cable for the rear view camera, which I'll probably mount separate. I might run out of daylight, so if I don't do that today, I will add this in later, hence why I'll be wearing something else. And yeah, all the cables. Other things you probably need is a trim removal tool. And I'm going to take you through that now. Oh, and a multimeter. First, there's something I need to get rid of, and that is this cheap, nasty £7 thing from Aldi. See ya. Right, so there's a couple of panels you need to be aware of. Firstly, in a Transporter, in a T6 anyway, start line, this is where the fuse box is that I'm going to tap into. This literally pulls off a little bit of force. Oh, actually that was quite easy. And you'll find inside here a lot of fuses. I'm going to show you which ones you need to look for, because you need to find a switched live and a permanent live, and it's actually quite straightforward how to do so. Other panel you need to be aware of, and really this is more for routing your cables, is this badger here. Hopefully you can see that. And what this panel is behind here allows me access to be able to route the cables all the way down and under. I think it's 3, might even be 4 cables, including the GPS. Right, next up, I'm going to grab the multimeter. We're going to find the fuses we need to tap into. I don't use a multimeter that much, and it wasn't that difficult to figure out what it is I need to do. But essentially what I'm trying to do is find 2 fuses, one with the ignition off that has a power of 12 volts or thereabouts, and one when I switch the ignition on, it only has its 12 volts, meaning that when I switch it back off, there's no voltage. So that's a permanent live and a switched live. I'm going to set the multimeter here to the V with a straight line and squiggly lines under it, and black is for the ground or the earth, and red is for the fuse. You can literally just tap the connector straight into the end of the fuse, and the reading will come up and it will show me the voltage going through. You're not looking specifically for exactly 12 volts, it will be a variation of close to that. So let's do that now. There's not a lot of space down here, maybe a bit of a contortionist. Oh, right, but I'm in. So you're looking for your ground, shiny metal surface area is a nice ground, which exactly this is. So I'm just going to hold this onto this shiny surface here. And what I'm going to look for, firstly, is a permanent live. So you can see on the ends of the fuses, I'm going to use this as a pointer, you've actually got access to the metal bearing tips, so that will give you a live connection, and all you've got to do is touch it onto the metal. Okay, so I'm getting nothing off of that, nothing off of that, nothing off of this. And what I'm looking for is actually the mini fuses, not these larger ones. What I did discover is that all down this left side are your permanent lives in a Transporter. So I believe all of these will have power in and around 12 volts. Yeah, which they all do, as you can see there. I know down the left is my permanent live, constant live, and down the centre there's nothing on at the minute. So when I switch on the ignition, back down into contortion. Oh. Okay, so ground back on there, and like I said, down here were my constant lives, which are still live. The guy was chuffed with himself. Right, okay, so here's how I'm going to do this. I think it makes more sense to start from the dash cam and work backwards. I saw another video where somebody had wired everything up into the fuse box and then couldn't route it properly. So this is what I'm going to do with the hardwire kit. I'm going to start at the dash cam. I'm not going to install the dash cam yet, that's fairly straightforward. I did notice in the box, actually the box is really, the kit's really sturdy. Now sturdy probably wouldn't be a compliment if I was referring to somebody's kids, but when it's kit and equipment, I want it to be sturdy. It feels like it's going to last. So clearly USB-C connection, right, that's part of the kit that goes into the dash cam. So I'm going to start at that end, I'm going to route it, and what I'm going to do is route it all the way across the top of the trim, which I'll show you while I'm talking. Route it down the B pillar in the van. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute, because the B pillar, because mine's a start line, it's not got airbags. If you've got airbags in the B pillar, be careful how you remove it and be careful where you route it. Luckily for me, I'm able just to push this straight inside the B pillar and not worry where it sits. But if you've got airbags in the B pillar, now that explosive is designed to rip straight through, and the weak point, now I've got no doubt it will rip straight through the cable. However, that cable is not designed to be there, and secondary injuries and all that sort of stuff, be careful. So equally, if you disconnect the battery, before you route it down there, if you've got airbags, just be aware that that airbag retains power for a surprisingly long amount of time once it's been disconnected. So just make sure it's not live, because it's a violent experience when an airbag goes off, especially when it's not supposed to. Okay, so I'm going to run this down there, and that's what we're going to do now. What I will say as well, on here, the black is the ground. Okay, like I said, attach that to any metal bearing surface that should be attached to the chassis. In turn, the yellow, that's the permanent live. Okay, so that's the one at the 12 volts constantly, regardless of what the engine was doing. And then the red, that's my switch live. So that is the one that's only got power when I switch on the ignition. Okay, so switched is red, earth, and permanent live is yellow. Let's get to it. Who's texting? Right, okay, so now we're going to get to fitting the cabling. So hardwire kit, this is the reverse camera kit. This is like 30 foot. I'm going to install that separate because I don't need to pull it down this B pillar, just need to bring it over the top, so that won't be too much work afterwards. So obviously the dash cam will fit on here, okay, and I'm going to run the cable in inside the back of this trim, and there's a gap in there. I mean, I can pull it down anyway, so the cable's nice and hidden out the way. Then behind this B pillar, I'm going to run the cable all the way down for the dash cam kit and back into behind the dashboard, right down to the fuse box. Now I'll take that panel off in a minute. There's something important in that panel which I'll show you when we get to it, but for now, okay, so I'm going to start backwards. So like I say, I'm not going to fit the dash cam yet, I don't need to, because I just need to take it back off to make sure everything works and so on and so forth. So USB-C, okay, I'm just going to leave enough slack over the top here. I know that's got enough. In fact, I'm going to double wrap that just on there, just so I know it stays, and there's enough for that to reach into the dash cam. Okay, the rest of it, I'm just going to try and get the tangles out as much as I can. Now this B pillar, this is what I'm talking about, with the airbag in it. Now I don't have that problem because this is a start line or a low spec version of a transporter, and you know, even straightforward there putting that in. I did actually have a trim removal tool. I was going to pull this off, but somehow my van seems to have eaten it overnight, which is so often the case in here. Let's get that nice and deep in there. Okay, I could probably just pop this off with my fingers. Annoying about that trim tool though. Just be super gentle, quite easy to damage this plastic trim here. I can actually see inside it while I do it, so there we go. Just enough to pry it off there, and there you go. You hear the clips going. I'm not going to take it all the way off, just enough to get the cable in behind it, that's all. Now we're cooking on gas. Hate seeing wires. I imagine anyone's the same. I'm going to install this. I want it to look like it's installed properly. Well, don't want it to look like it's installed properly. I want it to be installed properly. However, you don't need to pay 100 quid or whatever it is that Halfords and the like charge for when you're putting it back together. You don't want to get it caught in front of one of the plastic screws, it might actually damage. That's off more than I was wanting it to be, but hey ho, that works all the same. So you can see inside this panel I've got the sensor for the alarm, which is here, right pointing with fingers, which is here. Okay, so just be careful you don't pull that off. All I'm trying to do is get this cable, which is for the dash cam, out of the way of any of the, see now, see the yellow screws, the little plastic trim clips, and coming down here, that's the white as they go down, but just want to make sure they're not in front of the holes for when you line it back up, because it will damage. And then, because we're here already, okay, this panel needs to come off so I can run the cable in behind, but beware, this is obviously for the passenger airbag. Now, when I pull this panel off, it's really important, if you disconnect the airbag switch, that if you turn the ignition on at any point, you're going to get a airbag warning light, which is an MOT failure. Definitely don't want that. So make sure your power's off completely. And what I would suggest is, before you turn any power back on, after you disconnect this, I'm hopefully going to take this off without having to disconnect it at all, but just connect everything back up and make sure it's connected back up before you switch the ignition on, because it's probably a 30 quid reset with a Vagger or something similar to get that light switched off. That's just not what anyone wants. And this is where I could do with that trim removal tool. However, I'm just going to use a screwdriver gently and just pry it loose. And then you can even see the clips there, look, coming out. I'm going to put the phone down just so I can get a hand on it. Okay. Yeah, and it actually popped out fairly easy. You can see this connector behind the airbag, this block in here with the white writing on it. Just avoid, actually pries out from behind the this rubber here. So fairly straightforward. Okay, and that's that bit of trim removed. Thankfully I've been able to do it without disconnecting this. Like I say, you can disconnect it. I'm not gonna, because I just don't want the drama, and I know my luck of having to get it reset. But what I'm gonna do is run the cable under here, and hopefully I'm able to get to it so I can take it out of the fuse box at this side, but we're almost there. Right, so you can see B pillars mostly off, the cable's heading down there, okay, out of the way of all the plastic trim screws. Same again inside this panel here. You need to be careful, it'd be easy to catch the cable on any of the plastic trim, the screws, these nuts, bolts, sharp edges. So thankfully, you should be able to see in the back here, I've been able to just get the cable behind that metal plate, so it's actually well out of the way completely. You can't see any of it. And behind there, you might just be able to make it out, probably not actually, is this sort of adapter power cable, that black box there right in the middle. I've managed to get that hidden out of the way, so the cable runs down the bottom under here. Okay, I'm going to tidy that up around the back. Then straight into the fuse panel. And then the next issue you've got is trying to get an earth. But thankfully, this is already, the earthing cable is half moon cut. So as you can see, that black screw there that goes straight into the bodywork, there's one on the left as well. Here, there's not a lot of room, and I don't want to have to remove this panel entirely. So what I'm going to do is use this flexible extension. It's one of the torque bits as well, and I'm going to remove it that way. Don't have to remove it fully, just need to remove it enough to be able to get that connector into it and then tighten it back up. Don't know why I didn't think of this before, given these seats swivel and there's not a lot of room. People see a camera and they're like, oh my god, what are they filming? There you go. That's gave me like ½ inch. Right, so just as a wee reminder, the yellow connector is for the constant power, and the red one is for the switched live. So although I've already checked twice, so I don't have to mess about later. So I'm just going to double check which is the constant power and which is the switched. I've got the earth already fitted. That was actually surprisingly easy. Okay, all down the left. as I said, are my permanent lives. Although the maximum I've got is a 10, so I'm going to have to connect into the 10. I'm going to check the right. Okay. So the yellow is actually going to go into this one here, into the 10 amp fuse. This bad boy here is a fuse removal tool, so pull that out and then you can pull your fuses out with that. 1, 2. Bought these off Amazon. They were like, I don't know, $7.99 for 4. And they come with fuses as well, which is great. So I went to Halfords and they had one. It didn't come with a fuse either. So should have started on Amazon, to be honest. Grab my fuse removal tool and I'm taking this 10 out. Push it on. 10 comes out. Don't forget where it was. And I get my fuse tapped. It's very tight. Put the permanent live in as well. Straightforward. I'm going to plug that in. Back to, of course, where it was. Actually, I've got a bit of space. That's my permanent live in. And I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to use this 15 for the switch live up here, which is the second to top. So don't forget where it is. That's problematic. Quite tight these. Second from the top, 1, 2. Buzzing that I didn't get an airbag burst on my head. Just get the cables out of the way as best I can. Okay, put this badger back in. And now, you should have power. Right, so I'm gonna get a dash cam out. I had this out at Christmas when it arrived because, you know, I'm just impatient and I wanted to get it fitted. But really nice box it comes in. Like I say, it's super sturdy. 4K. It's got a front camera here, obviously, and then the rear camera, I'm probably going to install that a bit later on. But looks amazing. It's mirrored glass, so it can be used on its own anyway, just as a normal interior mirror, which is great. Box comes with a whole load of cables, GPS, there's a 12 volt plug if you just want to use it that way. There's my reverse camera with various mounts. There's sticky pads, there's the GPS here. And then there's these little mounts that go on behind the camera to hold it onto your existing mirror. So I'm going to plug this in now and just see if it works. Okay, left myself enough cable, and if there's too much, I'll just tuck it out of the way. But, something I've just noticed. I've had it out of the box obviously to see what it looks like, but I've just noticed there's an SD card in it already of 64 gig. Happy with that. So I thought I was going to have to buy one. A 64 gig SD card installed. Amazing. On top of here, I've got a USB Type-C, a GPS connector, and one other. I don't know what it is. Might be the reverse sensor. But it looks great. So here we go. Let's plug it in. See what it's all about. Because the power's... Oh, got power. Hey! That looks incredible. Man, I'm well stoked with that. Let me peel this badger off. Looking at you. Looking at me. I'm well stoked with that. And you see the setup as well. So that's the front camera, which is on the mount itself, on the dash cam. There we go. I'll show you around as well. Don't know if I'm going to be able to rip this video off, but yeah. So that definitely works. So the reason we have the switch live and the permanent live, so it won't drain the battery, I'm told, is so that in the event of a parked crash, as in the van's left overnight or the car's left overnight somewhere, somebody bangs into it, which happened to me before. Somebody ripped my bumper off and drove off. The motion detection will kick in, and that permanent live is enough for not the dash cam to switch on, but enough for the camera to start recording front and rear if you've got both set up. So that's the benefit there. So now I'm going to plug the dash back in, which is straightforward, really just case pushing the panels back in, but making sure as well that none of the cables are in the way. Down the bottom there, they're all out of the way. Everything seems to be working so far, and then we'll have another little play with it. I'll actually get it installed on the dash as well, and see how that looks. So let's do that. Right, so everything's plumbed back in, all the cabling's plumbed back in. All we've got to do now is actually fit this to the dash, and like I say, comes with these wee connector clips, and they essentially on the back of the dash cam, load of hooks, top and bottom. It's quite flexible. They're obviously designed to be, you know, wider than a standard mirror, which they are. Like, they just fit just over the top, and these rubber stretchy connectors, they hook on like so, but there's choices to make them wider or narrower as you see fit. You need to make sure the camera isn't obviously just sitting against the previous mirror or the existing mirror. So you just need to make sure this camera is hanging off the side, line it up, and then maybe tighten it. And I'm also going to tighten up and put that on the tighter. So, right, here we go again. Right, let's line the camera up to the side, like so. Get this badger underneath, nice and tight. I'm going to just hide some of my wiring a bit more. I don't want to see any of that. Okay, and there you go. I bet I'm really impressed with that. I need to play with the menus, figure out what everything does. Oh, that's recording. Oh, cool. Settings. There's loads here. Is it the moment to take off the cover? Let's take off the cover. Oh, that's satisfying. But it won't be satisfying once I've got fingerprints on it. Ah, I just found a trim tool in the box. It's why you look first. I'm actually going to clean the glass actually before I fit the GPS. I'm just going to fit it at the top of the window, and I'm guessing that's probably part. I don't know if the motion sensor's built into this or if it's built into here, but it has got a motion sensor, so it knows when to start recording. It's a really good display. So literally the second I touch it, it's responsive. You know, like you get sort of cheap, I don't know, iPads and that sort of stuff, and you touch it and there's like a tiny bit of delay and it doesn't quite recognise your fingers. I'm going to switch it on, and hopefully no airbags pop off for one, and this should come on. The reason I'm able to switch it on is because there's a permanent live. Let's see what happens. Hey! So that appears to be working as it should. That's a great result. Probably took me about an hour. I've not done the reverse camera yet, yes. It's probably taken me about an hour to install that, but that's because I've been messing about with cameras and trying to show how to pull panels off and whatever, and I'm by no means a technically gifted person or vehicle electrician, so I've done that myself. And if you think about it, in short, all you're actually doing is plugging in a couple of wires. You're just plugging them into a fuse box. The difficult bit is really getting the trim off and getting to that stage. So there's nothing difficult about doing that. If I've been able to do it, you should too. Like I say, just beware. If you do have airbags, beware of how you run it in there, and be careful how you take it off as well. That B pillar. My cables are completely hidden, which I'm really happy about. Can't see anything. So for me, this looks like I've paid to have it installed, which is what I was after. So pretty stoked. Now I'm going to clean the glass, let it dry properly. I'm going to fit the GPS to the glass, run it back under the same way I did with the cable for this, and then I'll come back and do the reverse camera. Yew. Pretty straightforward again. I mean, all I've literally got to do is plug this in and tuck the cable up behind and stick it to the glass. It's got a peel strip on the back. Yeah, there is a connection for GPS. That's where I'm going to start. That was easy. The Wolfbox yeah, really happy. I think this looks epic. That was actually really straightforward to install, so really happy. The display looks amazing. What I'll do is I'll take this off and I'll overlay what you're looking at now, just so you can see what the clarity it looks like. But I quite like the idea that I'll be able to film front and rear when I go for a surf. So cool. Happy, happy, happy.
Sounds from the speakers on a hi-fi through the walls of her parents'